About a week ago on the channel, we decided to make a video talking about Cranel and of course his strength going into the Familiar War Games against the Freya Familiar. And of course, we got a look at his status sheet. We saw his stats, we saw his development abilities, we saw his new skills, magic, and so on and so forth. And we kind of got an idea on how his strength was going into the War Games. Now, of course, while he is the main protagonist, a lot of people are also curious to see where Ais Wallenstein, the female protagonist of the series, stands. Of course, with Belle getting stronger and stronger, him reaching level 5, it's only a matter of time before he is able to reach Ais's level. And so people are probably very curious to see where Ais stands in comparison to Belle in terms of their status sheet. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of things that will come into play in terms of her strength, her skills, and so on and so forth. And we will try and break that down as best as we can in this video. Of course, we'll compare the two. I'll talk about whether or not Belle is actually close to Ais or not. And you guys can let me know in the comment section down below, of course, on whether you think Ais is far away from Belle or is the gap way too close now. Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say down below. Now, of course, Ais Wallenstein, we have her status sheet here. This is from volume 10 of Sword of Rotoria. Now keep in mind that currently at this moment in time, we're only 10 days away from Sword of Rotoria volume 15, which is where I expect us to get the next status sheet for Ais. I do expect us to get a new status sheet for Ais in that light novel, but I wanted to do this right now because this will give us an idea of where Ais stands in comparison to Belle around the time of War Games. Now, there was another status update that actually wasn't covered in a status sheet in the events of volume 12, of course, right? Sword of Rotoria volume 12. But it's very minor, and I'll explain to you guys what those updates are as we progress through this video. Now, Ais Wallenstein belongs to the Loki familia, of course. Her race is human. Now, this is, I think, the more contentious point, I think, that everybody is quite confused about or quite curious about on how it'll develop, because of course we know that Ais's father is Albert Wallenstein, a human, so that's fine, right? But we also know that her mother is Arya, a spirit, and that's where things get very confusing, because it's like, well, what is she? Is she a human? Is she a half spirit? And if so, how have either of those things happened? It's going to be very interesting to see how that develops. So it's a bit of a contentious point on if she is actually a full-blooded human or is there something more to her. So it's going to be very interesting to see, of course, on that front. Her job is being an adventurer. The dungeon range that she's got is the 59th floor, which means she's, of course, reached the 59th floor, which is to be expected. We know the Loki Familiar's lowest explored floor is the 59th floor. Her weapon of choice is slender swords, and her current worth is 2,391,500 Valis. That is a lot of money, considering we looked at Belle's status sheet last week and it was only 20 Valis. It's quite funny the difference between the two in that sense, where Belle basically has no money and Ais has everything. We know who the sugar mommy is going to be in the relationship. We know who the sugar mommy is going to be in the relationship for sure. But yeah, let's take a look at Ais's status sheet now in more detail. So let's take a look at her stats first and foremost. So her strength is 100 H, defense is H117, dexterity is H131, agility is H112, and magic is H154. So of course, this is still in her early days, of course, right? This remember, volume 10 and this status sheet is coming around the time of course, the Xenos arc. And to be fair, at this point, right, it's only been, I would say, about a month and a half or so, or a month since she got to level 6 against the Udeus, right? So about a month or so since the events of the Udeus fight where she managed to get to level 6. And so, of course, her stats increase isn't going to be as insane. A lot of people may look at Belle and be like, oh, that's how everybody's status increase should be like, but dude has Liaris Freeze, man. He's a fucking cheat code, dog. It's crazy how much of a cheat code he truly is, dog. It's insane. Like, it's literally as if somebody's given him hacks, honestly. It really is if somebody's given him hacks, honestly. Now, of course, like I said, she did get an update in the events of Volume 12, and her strength jumps up to 154. So from 100, it goes to 154. Her endurance or defense goes up to 153 from 117, which is not a bad boost. Dexterity gets a big boost to 189 over 131. Agility goes to 174, which is actually the biggest boost, I think, in terms of the pure numbers. And her magic also jumps up to G202. So fairly good, solid boosts overall, you could say, right, to her. Like I said, I think she will get another status update come the events of Volume 15, because a lot of time has passed since the events of Sword Oratoria 12 to SO 15, and I think that, you know, with the training, expeditions, you know, all of that sort of stuff that must have come along the way, I think her status is going to go up quite a bit. So just keep that in mind when you're you know, looking at these details, because I think that's going to change quite drastically as well. Now, her development abilities include Hunter at the G rank, which basically allows her to improve her stats against monsters she's fought before and also gained Exilia from. Her abnormal resistance is also at G, her immunity, which basically means that nothing can affect her. Not even the strongest poisons will be able to affect her. So basically the same as Belle on that front. She's also got the swordsman ability or knight ability, which allows her to improve her abilities with, you know, weapons of, you know, swords basically. Again, a very interesting one. It's not a crazy one in that sense, but it's a very basic one. I think Hegni also has this ability, if I recall correctly. I think Hegni is the one who also shares the same ability with her as well. Spirit healing, it basically also starts regenerating Ais's mind after using magic, but it's a very slow rate, and even Riveria is the only other person who Ais notes that has this sort of ability. So it's a pretty interesting ability. And I remember, I think, if I recall correctly, Ais even mentioned that she probably got spirit healing just by using Aerial over and over again, which is her magic, which we'll talk about in just a second. I mean, I say just in a second. It's the next one right up. Magic Aerial. It's an enchantment. It's of the wind element, and the chant is Awaken Tempest. Now, this is a very strong ability. You know, Aerial is basically a huge boost to her stats. It's ridiculous. Like, Aerial has been mentioned as well, if I recall correctly, that you know, it's far beyond normal. Even Lafia mentioned it being abnormal, I think, as well. It was also noted to be stronger than Alize's Agaris as well, which is crazy to say the least. And she can keep chanting it over and over again to basically get that same boost many a times over, basically. The other thing to note about Aerial as well is that basically it is equivalent to Haruhime's level boost as well. And that's why when she was level 5, a lot of people said that she was basically a pseudo level 6. So now that she's level 6, she's effectively a pseudo level 7 with Aerial, which is crazy to say the least, of course, right? It's one of the reasons why she was able to take on Udeus so fairly well. And then, of course, you know, she was obviously able to take on Revis as well, who obviously is a level 7 monster as well, right? But of course, Aerial does have its drawbacks in the sense of, you know, she puts her body in extreme strain. It'll become her, you know, she will be extremely worn out as well. And yeah, it's quite insane on that front, of course, right? Then, of course, you also have Little Rafaga, which is basically an offshoot of Aerial, basically, right? It's kind of like how Belle has Argo Vesta, for example, and stuff like that, basically, right? Where he's able to enhance it and you know, use it as an offensive ability, because what Ais does is surround herself with Aerial and then just lunge at her opponent, basically. So yeah, it is pretty darn impressive and very, very strong, in all honesty. Her magic is very good. Like, it's insanely powerful. And it's one of the reasons why I feel like, you know, if she's able to get to the latter points of level 6 as well, right? Give her Aerial plus a Haruhime level boost. You've got yourself basically a level 8 Ais right there, basically, right? It's insane. It'll be insane. Now we have her Avenger skill. It's an active trigger and it enhances attack power against monsters exclusively. It greatly enhances her attack power against dragon type monsters, and the effect becomes even more powerful as the user's feelings of hatred increase. So as it suggests, it's basically effective against monsters, and it also kind of falls on Ais's whole notion of, you know, avenging what happened 1,000 years ago, right? With the events of her father losing to the one-eyed black dragon, her mother being taken or absorbed by the one-eyed black dragon as well, right? It's the reason why, you know, Avenger is so strong against dragon type monsters as well, and why it's also based on her hate as well. So if she's able to, you know, use all of that against the one-eyed black dragon, that hate will come into play, the massive power boost will come into play. She'll be very strong there as well. The only downside to Avenger is that in a one-on-one scenario, or one-on-two scenario, or even a two-on-one scenario, whatever it may be, when she's going up against other beings that are not monsters, the Avenger becomes kind of useless, right? Avenger does become kind of useless on that front. The downside to this skill as well is that with this skill, Ais's weapons can be destroyed massively. It can be destroyed heavily. In fact, Desperate and Sword Ale are the only ones that were able to survive its usage. And the only reason why Sword Ale was able to survive was also because, you know, she felt that connection with Reveria and the others, and she didn't want to destroy it in that sense, because it was such a nice gift in that front, right? She can also chant it, you know, combine it with the magic and use Tempest Avenger to basically create a black wind. And this is where things get very interesting, right? Because Tempest Avenger and Black Wind is so strong, to the point where her weapon, the Desperate, which we'll talk about in a second, it's the next thing we can talk about as well, it's an unbreakable weapon. Desperate started to be broken because of Black Wind's effects. That's how strong that magic can be. And then if she wants to even make it even stronger and stronger and stronger, you can use the power Nazel and chant Nazel in order to make it even better and stronger. It's insane. Like, I wish you guys could, I wish we had an anime adaptation for it to be shown, but the only place you can actually see this effect and everything is probably if you read the manga or the Danmimo version of Sword Art Online 12. It was insane, like hearing it voiced and, you know, being having it presented to us. Like, it is very powerful. It is very powerful. I mean, like I said, I think a lot of people, like, you know, we talk about Zard, Althea, and, you know, the Zeus and Hera family members, and I want to make a video talking about them as well, right? Don't get me wrong, they were strong, right? But some of the magic and skills that the current generation have, like Ais and stuff, right? It's just ridiculous, man. It's just so stupid, man. It is ridiculous. And so, yeah, Avenger is a very powerful ability, but it has its downside in that it is definitely an ability that's much stronger against monsters. And it also relies on Ais being hateful and angry. And that isn't necessarily a good thing to have when in a fight, right? Because you tend to start making mistakes. You tend to get blinded by rage, right? Because of the hate flowing through you, it is a little bit of a downside on that front. So Avenger, while seemingly a really powerful ability, does have its downsides in that, you know, it kind of is also like super effective on Ais's body, on her weapon, on her mind as well, right? It's affecting all three of her aspects, right? And that is a problem as well. That is a very big problem, of course, right? Now we obviously have her favorite weapon, which is the Desperate. It's an unbreakable super Durandal weapon, which means it's unbreakable to another degree, and it gets close to breaking when Avenger is in effect, with Tempest Avenger specifically. The only weapon that has endured the full force of Avenger, which is the strongest skill currently known among all races and familiars. The only other exception was Sword Yell, which discouraged Ais from breaking her bond with Reveria and the others during her youth. So there you guys go. I call it Sword Ale for some reason, but yeah, Sword Yell is also something that makes sense as well. Sword Ale, I think it was what it was translated to in Danmimo, I think, if I recall correctly. In the past, Ais cracked this unbreakable blade when she combined her magic with a storming black wind. So, okay, never mind. The damn stat sheet basically told it to us anyways. But yeah, no, Ais is very, very powerful. Ais is a very strong character. She's got a really strong ability, strong magic, strong skill. So, where does Belle stand up against her, is what you might be asking now. I think Belle is still quite a ways away from Ais. You have to remember his skills don't really lean into, outside of potentially Argonaut, don't really lean into favoring him in any situation. There's no real big enhancement boosts that he gets. All he's got is the insane stats he's getting, right? From level to level to level, he's getting insane stats. Right now, as a low level 5, he's probably more like a high level 5 or a low level 6, basically, right? But the moment Ais is able to use Aerial, for example, or if she is, you know, potentially doing some malarkey with, you know, her abilities and her experience, right? When I say malarkey, when she's able to use her experience and bring that out into force, Ais can dominate Belle quite easily. However, now comes the flip side of the coin, where I feel Belle, while he's obviously had great experience against monsters, he's also had a lot of experience against other people as well. And that's where Ais is very weak, in my opinion. Ais is a monster against monsters, quite literally. But when you put her against other humans and other beings, that's where she probably starts to lose out a little bit, because she's not had the same amount of fighting experience against other beings. You look at Finn, Gareth, Riveria, Otarl, and so on and so forth, right? I mean, the Freya Familia, we know why they're amazing against fighting other beings, because they have the death training going on every single day, right? With Finn, Gareth, and Riveria and all of those people, right, we've seen them have the experience of fighting a lot of beings back in the older days, you know, when the Zeus and Hera family were around during the Dark Ages, when they were going up against Evilus, right? And, you know, Ais was still just starting out at the time, right? There is a bit of a difference there, and that's where Ais is probably weaker, and where Belle might be stronger, because he's gone up against so many people, right? Like, I mean, he's trained with Hayden and Ryu. He's fought against the entirety of the Freya Familia, basically. He's gone up against the Apollo Familia. He's gone up against, you know, the likes of Dix and Jura and so on and so forth, right? And so there is that factor that Belle has, in that he's fought more human-like beings, right? Even the Minotaur, right, is basically fighting like a human, more so like than a monster in a way, right? Same with Astraeus as well. And so that is where Belle probably is a little better than Ais. But still, I think the general years of experience, you know, and also along with the fact of her magic and her stats and everything, she is still probably a little stronger than Belle. But I do think that give it another couple of volumes, and give it, of course, another big adventure for Belle, right? Another major expedition or something like that, where he goes down and absolutely cooks up a storm or something, right? And he actually gets the level status update from Hestia. There is a very good chance that Belle might be on par with Ais at some point in the near future. Probably we're only, I think, a novel or two away from that happening potentially. You know what I'm saying? I generally do believe that to be the case. But let me know what you guys think about Ais in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about her in terms of her skills, abilities, and stuff. Do you guys think she needs something more? What do you guys think she needs to work on? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave a like, of course, subscribe to the channel for more content, and I will see you guys next time. Take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.